Jack.
Levi.
The Book Club from Hell.
Hello everyone, this is Jack with the Book Club from Hell, a poorly concealed front for an international anti-white hate group. You've probably heard at least something about the Nation of Islam, a racial supremacist religious sect in the United States of America, formed in 1930 by Wallace Fard Muhammad, which claims that its members are the only true Muslims. Today's episode is on Yakub, the father of mankind, a collection of writings by Elijah Muhammad, one of Fard Muhammad's disciples. In it is traced the history of the universe. Turns out, your skin colour is a lot more important to cosmogony than anybody realised. Black people are 76 trillion-year-old gods. Fard Muhammad was Allah, who was only the latest in a long line of gods, stretching back to the start of the universe. Yakub, a black god scientist, selectively bred black people, choosing only those with inferior racial characteristics to reproduce, which resulted in the white race. Gorillas and chimpanzees are the descendants of white people. There's so much to be found in this book. So, enjoy.
So Wallace Fard Muhammad, the founder, also properly referred to as Master Fard Muhammad, who was Elijah Muhammad's, teacher?
I think he was a teacher. Elijah Muhammad says that he was like the personification of Allah.
Yeah. Calls him God.
Yeah.
At certain points. Yeah. He was a traveling salesman, door-to-door salesman in Detroit.
That makes a lot of sense.
So he definitely knew how to sell some shit.
Yeah. And he certainly sold... Do you know how big the Nation of Islam is? Is it all that big? He certainly sold it. There will be at least a few thousand people in it. They're very noisy.
Yeah. Maybe 50,000. This says 50,000 in 2007. They had an estimated membership of
50,000. Wow, that's bigger than I would have expected, considering how wacky this stuff is.
So 50,000 seems like a reasonable guess. It doesn't seem like the sort of religion that's going to spread very much or grow very much. It's sort of seems self-constrained.
It's fairly exclusive, as we'll get into. Very, very racially exclusive. With this book too, Yakub, Father of Mankind, it's a compilation of Elijah Muhammad's teachings, which he learned from Fard Muhammad, was Fard Muhammad the guy who created the Nation of Islam?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Fard Muhammad, personification of Allah. As an aside, someone in the Discord who's a Muslim offered to answer questions about which aspects of this book are or aren't in line with mainstream Islam. And in the end, I just didn't bother because there is so much here that is so obviously un-Islamic. Like, case in point, Fard Muhammad is the personification of Allah. Allah is only the latest in a line of repeating gods who take it in turns to rule the earth or the universe. Yeah. Those gods are actually black people who are actually not people, but just gods. Gods are like, a god is the highest member of this council of black scientists who every 25,000 years institute a new set of beliefs in the universe. Anyway, we'll get into all of this, but I'm pretty sure just everything in this book is haram as fuck.
It's haram.
Non-stop haram. But anyway, so Fard Muhammad's Allah, Elijah Muhammad interpreted Allah through Fard Muhammad, and now is it Louis Farrakhan or pronounced some way like that? I know he's a guy who keeps coming up and saying that he hates Jewish people in the US. I think he's the latest boss of this august organization.
So Wikipedia says that with regards to Fard Muhammad, it says, quote, both during and after his life, some people have charged that Fard Muhammad was a con man who used mystery and charisma to swindle poor black people by selling them new Muslim names and stirring up racial animosity by copying selected elements of other Muslim religious sects and ideologies that would fit his racial supremacist narrative.
I could
just a horribly malicious person.
I could completely believe that.
What a cockroach of a person.
Yeah, except the book's pretty entertaining.
Except he was a god.
Like, I'll give him that. This book is pretty fun, although he didn't write it. It was Elijah Muhammad didn't write it either. It's someone compiling the things that Elijah Muhammad learned from Fard Muhammad. So you're a few steps from my boy Fard, but still, he had a hand. So
do you think that Elijah Muhammad genuinely believed this? Or do you know, like, when I see the Scientology dude, the guy at the top of Scientology, sometimes he seems like, Miscavige. I wonder, does he actually believe this, or does he know that this is a bunch of bullshit and he's just like continuing in the con because he's making so much money?
I reckon he believes it. I think within a lot of these organisations,
fucking crazy, hey.
I reckon they actually do believe, at least to a large extent, what they're saying.
Because you're like dedicating your entire life to it, right? So
yeah.
I wonder if it starts out as how the fuck do you get somebody to believe something like this?
I think at least in Miscavige's case, wasn't he in Sea Org from a really young age, from 8 years of age or something like that, because his parents got into Scientology?
Oh, fuck.
Children are really impressionable. I reckon that's a lot of it. We should do Scientology, actually.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, Lewis.
And
Lewis
not the boring
Farrakhan.
stuff, not like Dianetics. I mean, see if we can find one of the more restricted pieces of Scientology literature and do that.
Hunt that shit down. Yeah.
And then get killed in our sleep by a crack team of Scientology cleanup experts.
That'd be a strange way to die.
Yeah, it'd be a very odd way to die. I'm sure they'd frame it as a suicide or something, though. Levi overcome with guilt at making fun of Scientology in an episode of an obscure
podcast.
Took his own life. He took his own life by shooting himself in the chest 30 times.
And then once in the back of the head.
Yeah, exactly.
After all the other bullets.
Just really wanted to make sure.
With a different gun. Just really wanted to commit suicide. Really committed. Whilst asleep.
Yeah. That's our future.
Hey man, with modern technology, you can do all sorts of interesting stuff if you want to.
Your imagination's the
if you want to obliterate. Yeah, that's right. When it comes to suicide, your imagination is the limit. You heard it here first, guys.
What were we saying?
You know what? If you ever come up with an inventive way to take yourself out, like, don't let anybody tell you can't do it. If you put your mind to it,
really put your mind to it. So
this was a strange book. We thought that, okay, we're about a year and 4 months in or so. Maybe we're close to 6 months, 18 months in to doing this podcast, and we've covered a lot of white racial supremacy. So we thought it would be fantastic, just fantastic, if we changed it up a bit. So the OG alt racial supremacists are the Nation of Islam, American black racial supremacy.
Yeah, this is a very racist book, but it's a different type of racism. I will give him this.
Very interesting.
This is one of the most intricate, or if not intricate, then different works of intense racism that I've read. This is very inventive racism.
Major points for originality.
Yeah. I haven't come across something like this. With a lot of, if not all, white supremacist stuff, it's pretty samey.
Yeah, once you've read one, you've read them all.
Yeah, whereas with maybe other works of black supremacy are also all like this, although that would surprise me.
Are all just
if this is the meme flex that really catches
Yakub
on in the black supremacist community. But this is a very, very strange set of beliefs. I also
it's so strange. I don't know how somebody. What am I saying? I do this podcast. Like, it's such a strange podcast. But I sometimes read these ideas and I just go, how does somebody who believes this even? How do they even tie their fucking shoes in the morning? Like, this is such a discombobulated set of beliefs.
So
how are these people even functional?
This book grew funnier and funnier to read as I went on because, again, these are things that Elijah Muhammad learned from Fard Muhammad. And he brags quite a bit about how much time he's gotten to spend with Fard Muhammad, where Fard's telling him all these cool things, letting him in on the wisdom of the universe. And I just, there was so many points reading this where I just imagined Elijah Muhammad listening to Fard Muhammad talk about the council of 24 black scientists, 23 of whom are making some new system of belief, and the 24th is doing calculations and then somehow becomes a god and becomes Allah and then becomes Fard Muhammad and then talks to Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad's sitting there going, yeah, I'm going to dedicate my life to this. This is good stuff. I really like this. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to put my name to it.
Just resonated with me, man.
He's just sitting at Fard Muhammad's bedside listening to him talk shit, feeding him grapes.
I bet you the Nation of Islam, given that they're all into like black racial supremacy, are very happy with the state of Pornhub these days. BBC. BBC fucks little white girls. Blacked.com. It's just Blacked.com's gets bought by the Nation of Islam. Just becomes a religious porn website.
It's so sinister. I'm really glad I gave up porn. I don't have to worry about this stuff.
They're all just wearing those hats that the Nation of Islam, big black dude, Nation of Islam hat.
The entire time they're just reading sections from Yakub, the father of mankind. I don't reckon.
No, they probably
Nation of Islam wouldn't be cool with that
really
because
against race mixing.
There are a lot of sections
sure
on
they
race
wouldn't
mixing.
be cool with it.
Like race mixing is
they would hate it.
Not okay, according to probably anyone in Nation of Islam. They're really not happy with it. So I doubt that interracial pornography would be something that they would endorse.
So that people know who are only listening via audio. I'm a person of color, and I was going into this very optimistic. I was like, "Oh yeah, we've read all this white supremacy stuff. It's Levi's time to shine. Jack's gonna fill the boot of this one." And then you know what? Also doesn't like race mixing, and I'm just not good enough. I'm a little fucking mixed race kid. Not good enough for the white racial supremacists. Not good enough for the black racial supremacists. Like, come on, guys. I'm like a little bit better than white people, but worse than black people.
I mean, to be fair, Varg wouldn't like me because I have the wrong coloured hair and eyes.
God damn it. We're just outcast, Jack.
And also, I'm race mixing. Because I think Varg considers,
that's right, you are.
Varg considers Anglo-Saxons and Germanic Slavs
and
to be different. And so, my marriage is also suspect.
You're mixing. Well, wait. Did he put Slavs below Scandinavians but above Anglos, right?
I don't remember.
So you're punching up
the Varg race tier list that he set out in Varg's.
All I know is I was down the bottom somewhere.
Yes. I would have been above you.
I'm sitting somewhere,
which is a real honour. I definitely feel good about that.
So you know what? I don't mind Yakub. Yakub put me above Jack in this one.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we'll get into the
Yakult.
5 races.
Yakult, father of
Elijah Muhammad also
delicious.
had a race tier list, and it's different to Varg's race tier list.
It's not as high resolution. Like he really
it's very low resolution.
He just says like the Japanese and Chinese are white people.
Well, then who was the red race?
He didn't specify who the red race was. I assume he meant they were the American Native Indian.
Well, that's what I would have thought. But then, okay, so for listeners, so we can set this
the Indigenous
out,
Americans.
We'll get into the reasons behind why there are 5 races, but there are 5. So there's black, brown, yellow, red, white.
Yeah, that's it. That's everyone.
And so I initially thought, okay, brown, so that's going to be like, well, a lot of the world. So First
Like
Nations
Indian
Australians
people
probably go into
or
there.
something, or First Nations.
People on the Indian
I'm sure,
subcontinent. Like that's
maybe
what I
the
would have thought.
Filipinos,
But then he goes, no, the brown race are the Japanese. And then leaves me
I was totally caught off guard by that.
Since then, the
Like,
intrigue.
wait a second.
The intrigue factor has gone up so much because where's Elijah Muhammad going to go with this next? You don't know. He just keeps you guessing. Shortly after making the Japanese the brown race, he said that the Chinese are the yellow race, and then said that he doesn't trust them.
So Fard Muhammad was just like a fucking racist piece of shit. He's just like,
this entire book is just pure racism. It's just so wacky.
And he just had to get in. He just had to get in a little jab at the Chinese. It's just like completely uncalled for. He just didn't like Chinese people.
I would say he didn't like a lot of people based on their skin color. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that.
So he didn't like anybody except for black people. I saw this whilst I was like just reading about the background and the Nation of Islam leading up to the episode. There's this video on YouTube of there's a couple. I think there's only 2 videos, unfortunately. Maybe there's a bigger video somewhere else of Louis Theroux meeting with the Nation of Islam.
Oh, actually? Oh,
yeah. It's really funny. It's really good.
See that.
And he goes into this shop owned by this black dude who's a member of the Nation of Islam. And it's a clothing shop, so he's looking to buy some clothes of this guy. He's just having a chat about his beliefs and stuff. And the guy's just being really fucking racist. And he just gets, over the course of the interview, he just gets more and more racist. And the guy's like, oh yeah, this pair of pants is made out of, I don't know, cow leather or something. He's like, yeah, it's probably killed by a white man. Look at that, it's Italian. White man killed this. You'd like to kill me as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it really does seem to be, and this is not exclusive to the Nation of Islam. This is definitely a characteristic of many people we've read for this podcast, that it seems to be an elaborate way of ordering beliefs so that you can just assume the worst in everybody you meet.
Yeah. Definitely a way of filtering your friend list. That's for sure.
It's definitely a way to have fewer friends.
Pretty fucking hard. if you just put like a Nation of Islam overlay on your Facebook profile picture, or a SWAT sticker, or like, I don't know, like a golden star icon or something, you'll filter off friend requests pretty hard.
It's definitely sending a message.
So that's the thing. There's an organization like in the US. The name escapes me for now. That looks at like racial hate groups and that sort of stuff. It's very famous. Can't remember what it's called. And these guys are classified as a hate group.
Yeah, I don't know
if they do any terror.
I think that's pretty justified.
I think it's extremely fair. Well, they do hate people. I don't know if they do any they've been known to commit any acts of terror or anything like that, which is, it's not really a plus, but at least it's not a minus.
Look, I'd say, I mean, you're kind of doing the bare minimum if you don't commit terrorist acts. I mean, I support you
if you're not a domestic terrorist
but at the same time, I'm not going to congratulate anyone on that.
Yeah. You're not getting any bonus points.
By the standards of this podcast,
done the bare minimum.
I guess I'd say, yeah, good on you. Okay, so it was like in the Penty Linkler episode when I thought he was going to start being really anti-Semitic and he didn't, and I gave him points for that. In the context of this podcast, I guess, okay, good on you, Nation of Islam, thumbs up, no terrorist attacks. But I guess in a broader context, that doesn't really win you any brownie points.
No. That's why I was saying, like, I don't think, I think this is a self-constraining memeplex.
It's extremely self-constraining.
They're very against, like, just interacting with others. They're not really going out there proselytizing or evangelizing.
No, I've seen videos of them shouting at people on the street, which I guess kind of counts as... is that evangelism?
Okay.
Insulting people.
Yeah, that's evangelism.
kind of
Well, they're just insulting white
calling
people.
people pieces of shit for being the wrong skin
I thought
colour.
they were like maybe out there like in a black community, like trying to convert people or something. But if they're just out there abusing white people, that doesn't qualify as evangelism. That qualifies as being an asshole.
Trust building activities, like team building. You know, when you're at work and you have team building activities, they have team building activities where you just go out and shout at people for not being black.
Or maybe it's one of those cult commitment tests. It's like, yeah, you've got to go and alienate yourself from like the rest of society.
That's a good point, actually,
So
because oftentimes with cults, they will make people do things that make them feel alienated from broader society. And yeah, like going out and racially abusing people will make you feel alienated because people aren't going to respond well to that. Like at best, they'll ignore you or they'll tell you to get fucked or something like that. So that's a good point, actually. It probably is just a method of indoctrination.
Hazing and indoctrination. Yeah, quite a malicious organisation, really.
One with internal rifts as well. So the person who assembled this book from the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, he notes that Fard Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad's original teachings on the origin of mankind, on Yakub, the scientist, actually aren't being taught anymore in much of the Nation of Islam. So here's a quote. So referring to the teaching about Yakub, this is a subject which Wallace Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's son, had banned from being taught when he first took control of the Nation of Islam. This subject was also butchered into a fairy tale by Minister Farrakhan and eventually discontinued. So I'm not sure. Are we reading a book of the Apocrypha, so to speak? The Nation of Islam Apocrypha?
No.
Or is this considered...
No.
Is this accepted?
So I would say, this is what I would say, based on my fucking cursory look on Wikipedia, is like completely my deep knowledge of the Nation of Islam, is that these guys are more like traditionalists, whereas the guys who branched off, they actually renamed the church and renamed the organisation.
Oh man, so it's like Catholics and Protestants.
These are
Orthodox and Protestants.
I think. Well, you might say that these guys are Orthodox Nation of Islam, whereas the other dudes who changed their name are like the Separatists, or they're like the Lutherans, basically.
Okay, yep. Are they like the Lutherans?
They tried to become like
the star-studded mega church evangelists in the Midwest.
No, they settled down a little bit. No, they're not star-studded, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
Nah, they tried to like rebrand themselves as a Sunni sect.
Did they actually try to rebrand themselves as a Sunni sect?
Yeah. They tried to call
so
themselves
much
something
of this
else.
that I think any person who's actually a Sunni would take one look at and say, that is in no way Sunni Islam. Even me, with my quite poor knowledge of Islam, I looked at this and just thought that this is so heretical.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
I also, before we get into the proper content of the book, I would like to say that in the preface, the person who compiled this says that, look, some parts of this book might seem repetitive, but in actuality, it's not repetitive. It's saying new things each time. You need to focus. And this is a very short book, and it is highly repetitive, and I don't think anything new is being said each time.
Yeah, so what happened was... So it's now called the American Society of Muslims, which I think a lot of other Muslims would take a serious issue with. Is basically a rift,
so
and for a while, so disingenuous. For a while, the Nation of Islam, I think, if I understand, if there's anybody from the Nation of Islam, if I'm misrepresenting your history, I apologize. Just come on the Discord and let us know.
Come on the podcast. We'll interview you.
Yeah.
You can call me a devil whitey and make fun of Levi for being mixed race.
There was basically a split back in the 70s. And that split happened, obviously, after Elijah Muhammad was writing. So this is pre-Reformation.
Situation in the Christian context.
Yeah, this is not Apocrypha. This is OG Old Testament shit.
Yeah, look, this is what exegetical historiography looks like. It's what we're engaged in right now.
So, in the beginning, chapter 1, I've got a few quotes here.
Don't you mean
just to
in
give
the real beginning is chapter 1?
He sets the tone strong. He wants you to know that everything you've learned before now is false. But in the real beginning, there are only a few gods. He says, quote, there are not any gods who live forever. Their wisdom and work may live 6,000 or 25,000 years, but the actual individual may have died within 100 or 200 years, or the longest that we have a record of is around 1,000 years. So each god, it says the wisdom of each god has a cycle of 25,000 years. This has been going on for many trillions of years. And the knowledge of God has been kept a secret by 12 men on our planet for many thousands of years. The 12 pass their knowledge on from sun to sun. So gods, did you fully understand the concept of what he was trying to say? That these gods are more like supernatural black men?
Yeah,
not
basically.
just men.
Well, I think
men.
all black men are supernatural. Like that's redundant to say supernatural black men. It's like saying wet water. It's intrinsic to the experience of being black that you're godlike. I think by the end of the book, I came to understand it somewhat. So I think it's
really
as much as you can understand it, because despite being so repetitive, the book's not actually that clear. I think so. The first being in the universe was black because there was this empty universe with no light. And then the first atom arose. The atom might have been water, it might not have been. I'm not sure. He seems to go both ways on that. But anyway, because there was no light, the first being had to be black, obviously. And so eventually this first atom created itself, and the distinction between something being created and being made will become important, but we'll leave that for now. So it created itself, it kept getting more complicated, and eventually it became a black man, the first man. And somehow this first man reproduced, and eventually you had a race of black people who are the original race, and they're a created race, so they came from nothing, they're not made. Nothing else made them. And
now, how that works is not really explained, but I assume that if you're a black man, like a full-blooded black man, not like me, dirty little mestizo like me, can't understand, but if you're a magical full-blooded black man
from Africa as well, because you're from the wrong continent.
I am from the wrong continent. That's the other thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And the best black men are the ones in America. Which happens also to be where Fard Muhammad was.
For some reason.
It's amazing how that works.
I'm not sure why the ones who ended up in America were better.
I think that's because that was Fard Muhammad's place of residence.
No, that's just a coincidence.
Yeah,
okay,
so
Fard Muhammad was... Well, he was God.
That's true.
So yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't believe a single fucking word that comes out of like a traveling salesperson's mouth, like even on a good day.
Yeah, but
if they started blabbing on about how they're God, well, obviously I believe.
Yeah, but if someone pulled that out, then I think, I have to take you seriously now. When you were just a traveling salesman,
well, you wouldn't say that.
You, but if you're Allah, who actually isn't eternal, but has only lived for a few hundred years and is just one in a long succession of gods which change every 25,000 years for the past 76 trillion years, then I'd say,
that's a different story.
I've got to listen to you now.
Give that a go.
When do I sign up? How much does your first course cost?
Oh, the first level is only $2,500 and the second level is $3,600. Levels on levels.
Sign me the fuck up. Do you accept Bitcoin?
Only Lightning, over Lightning. Private, fully private.
I will accept nothing else. Anyway, so yeah, the exact mechanics of the autopoiesis of a black man are not gone over.
Of the original black man, yeah.
Do you reckon they just divide
The
do you reckon it's just
autopoiesis
binary
of the
division?
original black man.
Like, people in Africa can reproduce sexually, but they don't need to. They can just undergo binary division and split into two smaller copies of the previous person.
Yeah,
Is
they
that
don't
what
need
he's saying?
sexual reproduction.
Have they maintained that ability, or was that lost over the past few trillion years of their existence?
Yeah, maybe the original were like exponentiating in population, and they somehow had to like I don't know, graft that out of them or something, so they wouldn't just take over the entire universe. I don't know. There's a good question. So maybe it's somewhere else in the Nation of Islam's literature explaining what happened to their autopoietic skills.
That's exactly. I want a mechanism of action. That's what I'm really interested in. But my working assumption is that all of this is true. I want the mechanics explained so I can appreciate it even more. But okay, so you've got this god race, and what they do is every 25,000 years you get I think it's 24 of them. A council of 24 scientists get together, and one of them will become the next god, like the god of the next 25,000 year cycle. And this just keeps repeating. So Allah is, or was, because he's dead now, which also I think Muslims would take exception to.
Yes. I think they would take exception to that. I feel as though anybody walking around calling themselves Allah would automatically be alienated by probably close to 100% of Muslims.
I don't think they'd take that well. Also that Allah didn't create the universe. He's just the latest in a long line of black gods who died.
Yeah, this is how you know that Fard Muhammad just like read about Islam somewhere and was like, okay, nobody else here is Muslim. They're not going to know what I'm talking about. Like, I can just like do whatever I want with this, and they'll go with it. What the fuck?
He doesn't directly address. Oh, actually, no. He says most Muslims don't have knowledge of God. He says that Arabs are, because of course they have to fit into his racial matrix. He says Arabs are okay, but often misled, and I think that's his way out. Like, if a Muslim says that they're not okay with him, he will either say, "Oh, you're an Arab, and so you're misled," or "You're following the Islam of Arabs, and they are also misled." Because everything has to come back to race.
Well, and this is coming directly from the mouth of God. So, like, who are you going to believe?
Yeah, well, that's the trump card. Ultimately, he is God, and he does know better. Even if he's not, the God, he's just one of a long line of gods.
So why do you think that people are so susceptible to this sort of thing? Because, like, whether it's Joseph Smith or not Elon Musk.
The cult of Elon Musk is fucking creepy. The people who are convinced that Elon Musk is their best friend because they have a Tesla or something like that. That's fucking weird.
Okay, so wait, if Elon Musk actually came out and started saying that he was God, do you think that people would believe him? Do you think he could start a cult? He probably could start a cult, couldn't he?
100% he could start a cult. There are so many people particularly very, very online, I expect young men who like Elon Musk a bit too much. If Elon Musk came out with some holy book, I reckon so many people would sign up to it.
That'd be super weird. That'd be super weird. He's just kind of like gelatinous now, you know? Like, he's a big dude. You know, he's like 6'4" or something. He's a big dude. He could be like a Giga Chad. Instead, he's all kind of pudgy. He's a bit of a yeast man, really. Anyways, I was bitching about Elron. Like, why are people like so susceptible to these sorts of things?
I think most people have a deep need for some sort of meaning, and our society doesn't.
Pish posh. I don't need any meaning.
Really provide
just give me
much
some
of
fucking
it.
drugs.
And so I do think particularly in wealthy Western nations, people are more susceptible to this sort of thing because they're not being given much meaning otherwise.
Yeah,
also, I think people just like being told that they're special. And yeah, but if you're of the right
Get a little
race
pat on the
with
head.
this, you've just got a guy saying, you are really cool. You're really special.
You're awesome. You're better than
you are
all those people
literally
you don't
a
like.
member of a god race which has existed for trillions of years.
Yeah, true. I should start a cult.
Yeah, do it. Start a cult
wonder
and
what my
tell
cult
them
would
to
be
listen
like.
to the podcast. Start a cult and use it as a way to advertise the podcast. It's the end
This is
game.
our holy book. This is our holy book.
The holy book, just all of our episodes transcribed.
It's just the most disjointed theology ever.
Yeah, but I feel like the more disjointed
mutually-
a theology, the more into it people get, because they're looking for connections in places where connections probably don't exist.
There's just none. We just start sprinkling in some
It's just
numerology throughout
noise.
our episodes.
There's no signal.
Just pure pareidolia with our
Yeah, exactly.
audio pareidolia with our
Pareidolia
episodes.
of meaning.
Jack and Levi, hundreds of hours of Jack and Levi talking about racial cults and and Elon Musk.
Oh, I just found a bit in my notes. So Elijah Muhammad loves numerology, except the numerology doesn't work. He's got
Wait,
this-
what?
he's
Wait, no.
He's got this
No.
thing about... No, when I say it doesn't work, I mean, if you're going to pick
Yes, it fucking does.
if you're going to pick numerological justifications for things, you've got almost an infinite space of things which correspond to certain
do have
numbers.
an
Like,
infinite
just pick
space.
one that corresponds exactly to the number you need. So he talks about why is the cycle of gods 25,000 years, and he goes, oh well, the circumference of the Earth is about 25,000 miles at the equator. Now, it's not,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
just like
exactly the
about.
same. It's not exactly that, but it's pretty
close,
close.
though.
It's pretty much 25,000. And with this,
Close
I
enough,
thought,
guys.
why couldn't you just pick anything that is 25,000 instead of, it's
And
kind of
it's
that.
actually even worse
It's
than
close enough.
It's even worse than Jack, because you could actually do the opposite, which is you could just find a bunch of natural phenomena which happen to have the same number and then work backwards from there
Yeah,
and make your
yeah.
number match the phenomena.
why wouldn't
And
you
then you'd
see-
be like,
Yeah, how
perfectly
many miles
matched.
around is the Earth's circumference? And then say, okay, well, that's the number of years that it takes to replace a god.
yeah.
I
I was learning about
He just fucked it up so much.
numerology. I'm reading this book at the moment called Number, about the historical development of and like discovery of mathematics, in particular number, and it's really fantastic. Strongly recommend. It's really interesting, and it's just like there's something about number. So the chapter that I just read was specifically about number theory, as opposed to like other parts of mathematics, like I don't know, like arithmetic and stuff, or just like symbolic representation. But numbers in particular have had this weird effect on people, where there's been throughout history like cults and theological like connections with numbers, all the way back to like Pythagoras, like had his little cult,
Yeah, yeah.
and then sprinkled throughout like the Hebrew texts and the Bible and stuff. There's all these like, whenever there's a prophecy, there'll be like some encoding in the name of like the prophet or something that's like some number, and that number has like some special magical property or whatever that like reinforces the prophecy. So it's like numerology is something that we really need to do on this podcast, actually, like a numerological book.
Yes.
Like the Tao Te Ching. Maybe we should do the Tao Te Ching or something.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. But with that number
I think
thing,
the Tao Te
so
Ching
I'm
has
just
numerology.
talking out loud now, but how much of it do you think is from the fact that number
Numbers are
systems, they're a specialized set of languages that can describe the external world or reveal patterns in the external world in this incredible
Yeah.
way? And do you
That's so
like
good.
with numerology, how much of it is that people have that intuition that with number systems, you really can examine the world in this incredible way? And from that, they ascribe this magical significance to numbers.
Yes, I think that's part of it.
Yeah,
That's
I bet
definitely
that's
part of
everything.
what Pythagoras, what Pythagoras was, because they were really like interested in like, they had like different patterns. So like the triangular numbers, which is like if you arrange dots into a triangle, like 1, 3, 6, so forth, it creates shapes. So they were interested in like the relationship between patterns in numbers and the shapes they created, including things like, obviously like Pythagoras theorems, like the Pythagorean numbers were this certain sequence of numbers that corresponded to like this ratio. But it's not completely the case, because part of the reason why the Greeks never figured out irrational numbers is just because they didn't like them. They didn't like dividing numbers. So they limited even the Greeks that like were okay with dividing stuff. They would only permit integer division, and they didn't like anything that got messy. So like if you showed them something like pi, they would just freak out.
I think it was even deeper than they didn't like it. They felt that it was unnatural.
They just didn't...
Like, just
unnatural, didn't exist.
Counter to the natural order.
And then they had that whole idea of like nature abhors the vacuum, right? So like a lot of these early cultures that discovered numbers or whatever, like just didn't have the concept of zero until I think it was like in Baghdad or something, like 1400 years ago, they discovered zero, or like whatever, and whatever the word is. But the other interesting thing is there's a component of it where they were obsessed with like the numbers themselves. So they were, and the European, like was it like the Jesuits and stuff? Maybe it was the Jesuits, or like other theologians were like really obsessed with the primes and the patterns that the primes made. So they were like obsessed with the space of numbers as such, and they were trying to find like which ones were like holy numbers and that sort of thing. That's really weird. Anyways, we digress.
Yeah, that's really been
back to Yakub.
The main reason for the existence of brutal death metal as well. It's been an extended meditation on the number 666. It's still going strong, actually. There are plenty of albums dedicated to that, plenty of lyrics dedicated to that. Deicide and Glenn Benton had an entire career based on that. So it's that tradition's still going strong today.
And it's a tradition that, for some reason, Fard Muhammad couldn't quite adhere to. He had to get a little bit sloppy on the sides. It's like
there's also this thing when he talks about how there's this council of 24 black gods every 25,000 years, and he says, "Oh, why 24? Well, you look at the angle of the Earth's axis of rotation, and it's 23.5 degrees. And what's 23.5? Well, that's basically 24, isn't it? You just round up."
Yeah, I mean, integer round up. Yeah.
There's just so many moments like that where he goes, "Oh, look, I know the numerology doesn't completely line up, but it basically does, so just go with it."
It sounds like Fard Muhammad was a shit salesperson, and also and
Elijah Muhammad was very credulous.
And Fard Muhammad was just fudging the numbers and was just like, yeah, this fucking kid will eat this up, but he doesn't.
Fudges the numbers in his religion like he fudges the numbers on his tax return.
And I watched a video of Elijah Muhammad, and this was a representative of like this white TV like news anchor or something was like interviewing him. And he was giving him a serious interview. It was like, this guy does... surely the role that the Nation of Islam played in, like, the history of African-American emancipation last century, it was like set things back. It was like counterproductive, because you have like news reporters actually going and interviewing these people, and then you get some cooked cunt like Elijah Muhammad talking complete nonsense.
Yeah, it really is an intellectual cul-de-sac. Yeah, I just came across a quote actually about the origin of the universe and God. So, he himself is self-created. How could self create self? Take your magnifying glass and start looking at these little atoms out here in front of you. You see that they are egg-shaped and they are oblong. You can crack them open and you will find everything in them that you will find out here. They were then, some of them, atoms out here. Well, who created them? I want you to accept the black God. You say, there is no beginning or ending. I admit that. But we do know that they had to have some kind of beginning. But how it happened, we don't know. That's why we say that his beginning we don't know anything about. I like that eventually he just says, yeah, we don't know how God started. But he then goes on to behave as if he does know.
So which chapter are you up to? Have you just been plugging along?
Still in chapter 1. Well, the thing, we're jumping around so much, like we're saying things from all sorts of different chapters.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
How about I'll read a quote explaining why God had to have been black, or the first God, and then we can just keep flicking through. So, he was the only one in the whole entire dark universe. He had to wait until the atom of life produced brains to think about what he needed. How long was that? I don't know. Brothers, but he was a black man. Coming out of total darkness at that time, we all could say that we are produced by a white God, but there was no light nor any white anywhere. There was all darkness. So God revealed to me, in that darkness which had no end to it, that darkness created an atom of life, and the colour to be the colour had to be black, as there was no light. Therefore, it had to be the colour of the thing that created it. All praise is due to Allah.
I love how they chuck that in at the end.
I bet, yeah, the Muslims reading this just start cheering at that. Like, yep, this is representative of my sincerely held faith.
I find it really weird reading these sorts of books because, compared to, say, more mainstream religions, I was thinking, like, what is it that made some religions take off and others like not? Like with this particular one, like it's pretty obvious why, because it's just fucking complete garbage. But how come other systems, and I'm not even saying any particular major world ones, but like is it they're older, but there's something sticky about them?
Yeah, but they have to have survived to be older.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know why. It's really weird. These ones are very young. I mean, maybe in like 1,000 years, Nation of Islam will be like 2 billion people or something. But
just imagine that.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Oh, I was having Varg flashbacks in this one bit. So you know how Varg has that section of Varg Smile where he talks about brown versus blue eyes, and he says, "Oh, what sort of things are brown? Shit. What sort of things are blue? Clear pools of pure water." Beautiful flowers, therefore blue eyes are better. Well, Elijah Muhammad flips that around. He says, so he uses the human eye as a justification as to why black people are gods and white people are created. He says, look at the ball of your eye. Think it over. That ball of your eye is white, all around a black sphere there, sitting, surrounded with white. Not the white in the centre of this ball, it's black here in the centre, but white around the black, right? He has made it like his universe. Around him is light, but he himself is black. All praises are due to Allah.
All praise. Think it through. Oh no, sorry, think it over. There's a repeating phrase throughout the book where he'll just say some complete nonsense and then he'll say, think it over. Think it over.
Oh, did you understand the stuff about the moon, actually? Because he keeps talking about how talking about how the moon was created when some god tried to usurp power or something like that, and so the moon was created trillions of years ago, and that's why there's no life on the moon as well. Did you understand that at all?
No, I didn't. And then I was hoping for some sort of narrative arc to this book where he would come back and explain some of these questions, and he just left it. But yes, it's a collection of disjointed pieces of writing and stuff, right? So there isn't a narrative arc, and you'll just have questions after reading this that will never be answered unless you can be fucked going and reading more Nation of Islam literature. They do give references, luckily. So if you are curious enough, you can go and double check their references.
Okay. At this point, it's probably going to be worth distinguishing between created and made. So, for Fard and Elijah Muhammad, something is created if it makes itself out of nothing, and something is made if something else makes it from pre-existing materials. And black people are created, white people are made. by black people, and that's part of the
And
reason
we
why
should
black
say
people are
that
much better.
As like the race itself, not like obviously like black people today are born from like a mother and stuff, but like their original like 6,000, no, was it 6,000 years ago? Or how many thousands of years ago? 6,600 years ago.
Black people.
Wait, or was it like 7
No, black
trillion
people are
years ago?
trillions
See,
of
there's
years
so
old.
many trillions of years old. Okay, so like 76 trillion years ago, the original black people somewhere in the cosmic void just like sprung forth.
Yeah,
And then
I
for, like,
he's saying it's like
75
76
trillion years.
or something. They're really old. I think it's white people were about 6,000 years old. Or no, white
Yeah.
people are to rule for 6,000 years, and we'll get to that.
Okay, so how old are white people then?
I think they're about 6,000 years old. So 6,000
Here's
years.
the other thing. I also don't think he was very consistent, like with.
No, he's not consistent at all. He's wildly inconsistent.
He couldn't keep a straight story. I guess this is not the sort of book where you ask for consistency.
You just have to agree.
All right, here we go. By one man, sin entered into the world. So maybe we should do more like a thematic thing because it jumps around a fair bit.
Yeah.
So
How about we talk about
should we
Yakub?
talk about? Oh yeah. Okay. So Yakub. What's really interesting is that Yakub, which is a modified version of the name Jacob from the Bible. So Yakub was the biblical Jacob, and he was sent from wherever to the island of Patmos, where, shout out to Book Club from Hell, throwback, John of Patmos, Revelations, aka Saint Dazza. Yeah.
Dazza of
Yakub, father of mankind, and Saint Dazza of Narra aka John of Patmos, were buddies. Yakub was a scientist, and there's a particular type of scientist, a big brain scientist. These are scientists like, for whatever reason, were like gods. And Yakub in particular was big brained. He was so big brained, he was born with like, his head was twice as big as everybody else's. And they would call him big brained Yakub. And that was 6,600 years ago. And then he basically... Wait, should I go with the genesis of white people, or should we leave it there for now? And that's the background of Yakub.
No, let's go into the genesis of white people. I'll look for some quotes while you're talking about this, because I mostly remember the story of how white people came to exist, but there are details that I'm fuzzy on. I think because he actually just keeps changing them.
Yeah, so at least towards the end of the book, basically. This is really weird, but like for whatever reason he was exiled. Maybe you can find a quote of that. He was
we should say Yakub was living in Mecca.
Yeah, for whatever he just this motherfucker just retconned in his fucking weird Jacob fanfic into Islam and said he was in Mecca.
Yeah,
it's just like.
But this is Mecca way before Muhammad was around, so this is a long time ago.
And he took, what was it? He took his people with him. He like made some deal with the king of Mecca, and was like, leave my people alone for like 20 years, and I won't be an asshole and like destroy you, and then let us go. And he took his followers with him. And then they performed what Fard Muhammad / Eliza Muhammad calls, what do they call it? They call it grafting, which is essentially eugenics. and in detail, it's roughly like they conned the black mothers into giving them their babies, killed their babies, and then only let the brown and the lighter skin colored children be born and survive. And over the course of 600 years, eventually bred white people, where they had black people and only let the browner ones survive. And it took 200 years to like fully create brown people, and then it took another 200 years to fully create yellow people, and then it took another 200 years of breeding of like eugenics to create white people, and it was the distillation process of getting lighter and lighter skinned people.
I'd like to put in some important mechanical
please.
details here, though.
Sorry, I'm a bit hazy of the details.
So Yakub discovered that in the black man are two natures. There's black and brown. And so he decided that, I don't know why, he would... So obviously the black is better than the brown in the black man. So he decided to breed a group of people who were only brown. And then within the brown, there was the brown and the yellow. And so he just kept breeding, like selectively breeding people. So he got a group of people who were yellow, and in them was yellow and red. Kept doing this again, got red people. And eventually you end up with white people. That's how you get the 5 races. The Yakub breeding people
all 5
to only have one of these two natures. The thing is, though, so if that's the case, if you have like people race mixing, what natures will their kids have? Will they have really, really wacky combinations that, like, could you have a brown nature and a red nature in one person?
And get like a maroon nature. Yeah, sounds unnatural to me.
It sounds very unnatural, which is probably why
sounds extremely unnatural.
He's so against race mixing.
Miscegenation.
I don't think he used that word at least, so I'll give him points for that.
He gets points for not using miscegenation. Fuck, I never realised I'd know so much about race mixing. That's a good question. I don't know. I got off unlucky and got fucking green eyes. I wonder what he reckons of green fucking people.
Oh, he doesn't like green eyes. He repeatedly talks about how blue and green eyes are ugly.
Oh no. He really doesn't like Levi.
Yeah, I have brown eyes, so I'm doing better than you in that.
We're trying to gain favor in the eyes of
gain favor
Elijah Muhammad. Please, Fard, take us into your cult. We want to come to the into the arms of the Nation of Islam. No, I don't think we can. There's no like redemptive path. There's no ontological transformation for a white person into a black person. There's no saving.
No, there really isn't.
It's purely it's predetermined racial.
With black people,
theology.
Brown people, yellow people, and red people, they're all somewhat alike. So obviously, the black ones are the best because they're the original created, unmade race. But the other ones are redeemable, whereas white people are entirely separate from all of the other races. And Yakub made them so that white people would rule over everyone else for 6,000 years until a black person arose who was so virtuous and wise and strong that they could overthrow the white people and then would institute an eternal reign of a black god. So we've had these cycles of 25,000 years, but very soon, very, very soon, there will be a period ushered in of monoracial bliss. Where
a pure monoracial society at long last. Oh, we've been
finally.
Waiting for this day. I don't really care if it's a black monoracial society or a white monoracial society. As long as it's only one race at a time, we're okay. Jesus Christ.
Oh, here's a bit of numerology. Here's some more numerology that proves why this is true. So, okay, so
beyond the shadow of a doubt.
You know how with each new race, Yakub killed the darker-skinned offspring to make lighter-skinned offspring, and after about 200 years of this process, he got a new race on the island of Patmos. So, you know how that's the case. So the Bible says that creation took 6 days, and each day's about 100 years. 3 new races had to be made, and that's 600 years. And so 600 is basically 6, right?
Pretty much the same number.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. And that's why it's true. This is the reasoning of a fucking 6-year-old. Except this guy was considered a religious leader and the personification of Allah.
This is the personification of Allah.
The
guy didn't realize that.
Cunt traveling salesman.
Like, that's only interesting if you're using a base 10 number system.
Yeah, we need. What do you reckon the numerological possibilities of modular arithmetic are limitless?
Or hex base 16, or base 8, or base 16, or even a base 12 number system.
I would use base anything if it gave me the number that justified what I wanted to justify.
I don't care what pick the number I want,
what the base is,
and then I'll work backwards and make that into the base.
Give me base pi if that's what I need. Yeah, but this process of, it's just selective breeding. He makes out that it's this really incredible scientific process. Like, it's selective breeding, but he calls it grafting. And the thing that has been grafted out is always weaker, which is why the white race is the weakest race. And we'll get into why they were allowed to, or able to rule over all of the other races despite being weaker. And it's because of Moses. A double dealing, no good, untrustworthy Moses.
There's a chapter I've got in my notes. It just says, just read the entire chapter because it was a short chapter, chapter 19. And so there's such a cooked chapter where it's just read it.
I just want to read this one quote and then please read chapter 19. Because there's another bit I'd quite like to read, which is the story of Yakub's childhood. Which
yeah, that's a good one as well. Big,
just so
big brain, Yakub. Big head.
It's told in such a childish way. It almost sounds like a children's story.
This guy is like,
but a children's story justifying intense racism.
It's really racist. Children.
But anyway, regarding grafting,
children's stories are actually racist.
In cats, such as the cat family, all the grafted of its family is lesser in power than the original lion, and that which is grafted from the original lion is not to be trusted too much as with leopards and in the other cats from the lion family. These cats from the lion family are more dangerous and cannot be trusted like we can this original lion. The original lion, we can take him, make him lie around us, even at an old age, and we can still trust him. But we can't trust this leopard and these other cats because they have, by nature, something evilly wicked that came through the grafting. He comes upon us while we're not looking at him, and before we know it, he'll destroy it. He'll destroyed us. There's some of the English can be pretty weird. So we don't trust him, but we will trust the original lion. Get them when he's a little cub, and we can bring him up like he's any other house cat. Walk around and play with him till he's an old man. So it is with the human being. This also gives you an idea of this guy's prose style. Yeah. It's just like a fun house of weird mirrors. Nothing quite follows from anything else. It's continuous free association, extremely repetitive. I wonder how many of these things were not actually written down, but are just recordings of Fard Muhammad speaking.
I think
because that would make more sense.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So apparently you can just like chill out with a lion if you're black, I assume. if
it's an original,
if you're a magical black person, or if you're a magical black person and it's an original spiritually pure lion, then you can just lay next to it.
I just think, I mean, at least with my cat. So the other day, my cat ran inside very, very excitedly with a mouse and started tearing its legs off. I would not go anywhere fucking near a cat larger than a house cat. Those things are just vicious. Even if it's a spiritually pure lion, I'm not going anywhere near it.
What if it's a Muslim lion? What if it was like a Nation of Islam line? Where
Is
it's
it
got his
like
little hat
real
on?
Muslim or, one of those not real Muslims, like the ones who follow the Quran and the Hadith and Muhammad?
The other 1.2 billion people.
The other billion Muslims. The non-Nation of Islam Muslims.
50,000 weird people in Detroit versus
They're the ones who got it
1.3
right.
billion people across the world.
It's actually interesting. I just came across a bit in my notes where, in some ways, he's a white nationalist too, because he predicts that all races will return to their ancestral lands and says whites will return to Europe.
You mean West Asia?
And then says that this is the right thing to happen. So, do you think we're beginning to see a Varg Vikernes, Fard Muhammad crossover?
I think they would agree, weirdly enough. They would agree, at least on the policy implementation. Not necessarily why they should do it. They could say, like, okay, sort of, we can put the details aside, but we want to go in the same direction, So,
We both
Varg's like,
we both want
we'll stay.
states.
We want ethnically segregated parts of the world, and we can just believe whatever we want in those parts of the world. Like, you guys come from like magical black people 76 trillion years ago, and we come from Odin.
Oh, here we go. I just found I wrote down the story of the details about how Yakub first started making the different races. It doesn't really go into why. Besides, he needed to get white people to oppress black people to make
It never explains Yakub's
a black god
motivation.
arise.
Oh no!
He also is not so disciplined when it comes to the moral valence of Yakub, because in some places he says Yakub is the father of devils. That is to say, white people. But he himself is not a devil. He was a proud black man. But in other places he just says straight up, yeah, Yakub's the devil. So I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think of
black man created the white
what
race
is really my
of devils.
father as a white man. Dad, Yakub, was he a good guy? Was he the devil? I don't know. How am I meant to feel about this? I feel like Fard Muhammad wasn't catering enough to the feelings of white people when he's not telling us how we're meant to think about Yakub. It's a major
feel like you
flaw
weren't
with
in
the
his
Nation of
target
Islam.
market.
But anyway, it says that Yakub was in Mecca and he needed to find people to begin his grafting process on. So he started teaching Islam to get people to follow him. And I think that's where Islam came from. It was just some ploy so that Yakub could get fucking guinea pigs to start selectively breeding to make white people. Which I think also would be objected to by some Muslims.
Yeah, I guess it's not canon.
It's probably not completely Quranic. But anyway, he promised people luxury and slaves under Islam, and that's why people followed him. I also think some Muslims would take exception to this, that people follow Islam just so they can get slaves and luxury. That's the goal of Islam.
I think so. I think Muslims would take a lot of issue
I
with these
just
people's
don't
beliefs and
understand how
claims
there hasn't been a bigger backlash against this.
from the Islamic community. Yeah,
Do you reckon it's just because this, Nation of Islam is so niche that
it's just so
Muslims have
obscenely,
not even heard of it, so they don't give a shit about it?
Or I think, if my sister's Muslim, if she looked at it, she'd just be like, well, they're not Muslim. It's just like,
Well, yeah, that's the easy answer. This is just not, it's not Islam. If you change enough things, I think it just stops being Islam. Especially when you do things like say that Allah is dead, didn't create the universe, and it's just one in a long line.
And now we have a new god.
Of gods, yeah.
If I think in a lot of Muslim countries, before some more modern Muslim countries, but even in some modern Muslim countries, if somebody started walking around saying Allah's dead, I am the new god, they would just get killed.
It's just a flat out heresy. So that's where Islam came from. That's the origin
That's
of
where
Islam.
Islam.
It was Yakub's
Definitely
sales
heretical.
strategy to get human breeding subjects in Mecca so that he could create white people. And eventually Yakub got arrested by the Meccan authorities because the Meccan authorities were afraid of his teachings, and the jails were filled and there was no more room to put people in jail. But people kept teaching what Yakub taught. So the king of Mecca visited Yakub in jail and asked Yakub what he would accept in return for ending this trouble. And as an aside, I'm not sure what the trouble is. Like, ending the trouble of the king arresting a lot of Yakub's followers and filling the jails. It actually sounds like it's the king causing that problem, but fine. So Yakub basically says to the king he would accept it if the king gave Yakub and his followers the resources to start their own civilization and the necessities of life for the next 20 years. And the king says, oh, that sounds like a great deal. I'll do it. So Yakub and his followers got into ships, and there were 60,000 of them, including Yakub. And they go to the island of Patmos. So that's how he got from Mecca to Patmos. I mean, I'm not sure where they got on it. Like, he must have moved from Mecca to somewhere on the coast. Because, like, I don't know how you get a ship from Mecca.
You got like some sick
to
villa
Patmos,
on the coast.
to an island
Yeah,
in
I
the
know.
Mediterranean. Sail from fucking Mecca. What are you going to do? Sail through the sand?
I think this that
Geographically
probably
confused.
Fard Muhammad just was like
Did he look at a
just didn't
fucking
give a
map?
fuck about these sorts of things. Just like these people just fucking believe whatever I tell them. No map. You mean white man's map? Lying.
Ah,
Lying
I
map.
see. Yeah, maybe.
Who made that map?
Anyway, so that's what happened. I also like that while they were sailing to Patmos, Yakub threw some people overboard who weren't healthy and productive. So, I mean, it makes sense given that the grafting process is basically eugenics, but to make worse people. Look, I can definitely
For whatever
see how
reason, wants to
Yakub
make
throwing
evil
people
people.
overboard because they're not healthy and productive would fit into that. Although, if he's trying to make shiver
was this-
races, wouldn't he want people who weren't healthy and productive? Like, he would want unhealthy, unproductive people to make white devils. Like, isn't that
No, because he wants them to
the
be morally
prime
corrupt.
genetic grafting stock for
like-
making white people? Like, unhealthy and unproductive people?
See, you're thinking, Jack. That's your problem.
Just
Just
gotta
stop
accept it.
thinking. Just stop thinking and accept whatever the fuck Fard Muhammad says. It's got it. So there was
When
a
he
really
was on
funny.
Patmos, though, Yakub chose doctors, ministers, nurses, and a cremator as his top labourers, and they were to help him create the white race. And it was basically like the ministers would only marry people who would dilute the black aspect of their character. The doctors and nurses would kill darker skinned babies and only let the lighter skinned ones survive, and the cremator would just burn the bodies of the dead babies. And that's how over 600 years they got white people. And here's a good
Checks out.
quote. Here's a quote that brings up a topic that before this episode we hadn't talked about for a while in the podcast. The doctors of today hold the same position over the people. You go to them to get a blood test to see if you are fit to be married. As an aside, I don't recall having to get a blood test to be married, but maybe it's different in America.
Yeah.
Today, they say it is done to see if there are any contagious germs in the blood. I wish that they would enforce such a law today. Keep the white from mixing with black. Just the opposite. Perhaps we could remain black and not be disgraced by a mixture of all colours.
And that's
race
where a
mixing,
single
race
tear-
mixing's back in podcast.
That's where
in book club
a single
from hell.
tear rolled down my cheek as I realised that I was going to be excluded from the Nation of Islam. No.
Maybe that should be it should be one of our goals to find a book where you are the member of the master race.
What? Hey, a mixed race Aboriginal Australian person.
I mean, it's specific.
I'm not even like a nice form of mixed race, because I have some like unknown parts back. It's just like, okay, that might have been like a Chinese person or something. He's not entirely sure.
Oh, that's even worse for Fard Muhammad, because you know how he feels about Chinese
He doesn't like
people.
Chinese people. Like, at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm just different.
Be the change you want to see in the world. You should write your own deeply racist
I should
book
start a mestizo
about how
cult,
people like you are the master race.
I should start an Australian mestizo cult.
Yeah. I reckon that's a good
Church
idea.
of Levi.
That's what you should do.
This is my life calling. All I want to do is just have a harem of crazy hippie chicks who really like Indigenous culture.
If you wanted to start a sex cult based on that, you probably could find a lot of people from like Melbourne Uni and things who'd sign up. A lot of people
just walk around like
in the Bachelor of
know.
Arts program.
Yeah, or maybe like maybe go up to like the forests outside of Noosa, Queensland. Just walk around there.
Yeah, around Nimbin.
Find a bunch of hippies, Nimbin. Yeah, go around to all the hippies.
Coastal northern New South Wales.
Coastal northern New South Wales and southern Queensland would be my breeding ground. If I dreaded my hair and started wearing like hemp
robes made of hemp.
Yeah.
In northern New South Wales, if you told people that there'd be free weed, they'd probably believe in anything.
I fucking love northern New South Wales. So good.
All right, here's a quote. Here's a really good quote. The little yellow baby became kind of evil and wicked.
You know it's bad
Like
when
the
it
next
starts,
brother,
the little
white.
yellow baby.
This is the Chinese that I'm talking about. The Chinaman, in near equal with white folks. He loves to fight, but he's braver than whites because he's back more closer to the father than the white. So he doesn't like Chinese people, but at least they're not white.
The little yellow baby. All right, whatever he's about to say is going to be racist.
What a way to open a quote. Yeah, there are certain things,
so
there are
fucking dumb.
certain phrases that nothing following them can be good, and the little yellow baby is one of them.
It's definitely one.
Nothing following the little yellow baby can be good.
I'm not racist, but
I feel
about
like
black
the little
people
yellow baby
is
is even
the little
worse
yellow
than I'm not
baby.
racist, but it's
the little yellow baby. Yeah, it's so fucking funny.
Oh, what about this bit? This is another bit of real Islam, not that fake Islam that billions of people believe in. Did you know? So Muhammad had a lot of heart problems. Did you know? Because he was given knowledge of white people and Jews by the scientists of Mecca, and he was told by them that he could not reform these devils, and this grieved him so much that he developed heart problems, and that's why he died quite young. I mean, that's at least according to Fard Muhammad.
So he's talking about Fard. No, Elijah Muhammad is that quote is about Fard Muhammad.
No. This is Muhammad.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, not
okay.
Fard Muhammad, but Muhammad, Muhammad, the prophet of not real Islam.
Oh, okay. Well, I misinterpreted that quote. See, because
No,
Muhammad
this is,
just disappeared one day. And I thought that he was that this quote was about Elijah Muhammad trying to explain what happened to Fard.
I thought this one was about, like, because in the places where he's talking about Fard Muhammad, he says Fard Muhammad or Allah. But when he's just talking about Muhammad, he just says Muhammad.
Oh, okay. So he just ignores the ascent of Muhammad. He's just like, yeah, that didn't happen. He had a heart attack.
Yeah. He had heart problems
Yeah, right.
because he was a good guy. He wanted to save everyone, but he found out that he can't save white people or Jewish people because they're just bad news.
Yeah, he did. You see, he snuck in a little bit of anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
Just a
and
little bit. Not a
we
huge
already
amount.
know that Nation of Islam has a
Grossly
good
anti-Semitic.
relationship with anti-Semitism. They're partial to anti-Semitism. So I wasn't surprised when it came up.
No, but I thought there was going to be more.
Like, this is mostly anti-white racism. There are probably other books where it's much more anti-Jewish racism.
I bet if we had
I
looked
bet.
throughout their catalogue, we would find some like heinous shit.
Yeah, but look, they are focused in their arguments, and in this book, they're focusing on white people. So it makes sense that in this quote or in this section, he's saying, "Yeah, look, I acknowledge that I also don't trust Jewish people, but I'm focusing on white people for now."
Now, getting back to how much white people suck. I want to draw your attention to a quote. I think he says, this grafting thing, aka eugenics. He says, Yakub's race of devils. So I'm about to drop a fucking knowledge bomb on you people. You guys, if any of our listeners happen to be primatologists, you're about to learn some truth right now. So Yakub's race of devils, aka white devils, were exiled in the hills and caves of West Asia, now called Europe. Think it over. They were without anything to start civilization and became savages. They remained in such condition for 2,000 years, no guidance or literature. They lost all knowledge of civilization. The Lord, God of Islam, taught me that some of them tried to graft themselves back into the black nation, but they had nothing to go by. A few were lucky enough to make a start and got as far as what you would call the gorilla. In fact, all of the monkey family are from this 2,000-year history of the white race in Europe.
Gorillas come from.
There you go. Fucking gorillas and chimps and
Failed
monkeys,
grafting
marmosets,
experiments of white savages
fucking orangutans.
created monkeys.
Actually, white people. White people that fucked up the grafting. Turned themselves into
That was
gorillas.
such a good bit.
I just looked at that bit and was like, what the fuck did I just read?
I wonder how much of this is a reaction to, say, Varg-style racism against black people, where they say, oh, black people are monkeys. I wonder how much of this was, like, Fard Muhammad hearing that and going, nah, you know what? White people are monkeys. It's like he heard this racist meme and decided that instead of going, no, that's dumb, I'm not going to repeat that, he goes, no, I'm going to put my own spin on it. I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it my own.
Actually.
Yeah, and then he took it
So
really
I've got
literally and was like, no, actually, gorillas are just the descendants of white people.
I'm going to read chapter 19 because it's a short chapter.
Yeah.
And it was just weird enough that I was like, okay, I got to read this. So chapter 19 is titled, And the Serpent Was Lifted Up. After 2,000 years of living as a savage, Allah, again, like, I feel as though, like, all the other Muslims would take issue with this. But after 2,000 years of living as a savage, Allah raised up Musa, aka Moses, to bring the white race again into civilization, to take their places as rulers, as Yakub has intended for them. Moses became their god and leader. He brought them out of the caves, taught them to believe in Allah, taught them to wear clothes, how to cook their food, how to season it with salt, what beast should they should kill and eat, and how to use fire for their service. So yeah, white people didn't have fire until 2,000 years ago. Moses taught them against putting the female cow under burden. He established for them Friday as the day to eat fish and not to eat meat on that day. And fish is the main menu on Fridays for many white homes. There's an anthropological analysis of white people. Jack, did you know you only eat fish on Fridays because of Moses 2,000 years ago? Bet you didn't know that. They were so evil and savage that Moses had to build a ring of fire around himself at night, and he would sleep in the center of the ring of fire to keep the white devils from harming him. They were afraid of fire and are still afraid of fire. He's just making shit up about white people.
This is a peculiarly white characteristic that white people don't like fire, but every other race is all good with being burned.
And Allah said, one day Moses told them he was going to have fish come up from the sea, so that tomorrow he will have some fish. On the next day, the fish were there. Moses had a boatload sent up from Egypt. Moses said, see, the sea came up last night and brought us some fish. One of the savages was a little smart and said to Moses, where is the water? From then on, Moses recognized the fact that he could not just say anything to them. He had a hard time trying to civilize them. Once they gave Moses so much trouble that he took a few sticks of dynamite, went up to the mountainside, placed them into the group, and went back to get those who were giving him the most trouble. He said to them, stand there on the edge of this mountain and you will hear the voice of God. They stood there about 300 in number. Moses set the fuse off and it killed them. The Imams got after Moses for performing this trick on the devils. Moses said to the Imams, if only you knew how much trouble these devils give me, you would do as I do. Moses taught the devils that if they would follow him and obey him, Allah would give them a place among the holy people. Most of them believed Moses just to get out of the caves. The Imams recognized the tremendous job Moses had trying to civilize the savages. These enemies of the righteous black nation of earth now had to take their place as the rulers and the conquerors of the earth. The devils were given the knowledge and power to bring every living thing, regardless of its kind of life, into subjection. So there you have it, guys.
That's so good. That was one of my favorite parts of the book.
Fucking batshit insane. He just made some nonsense up, just didn't explain anything. Yep, Moses had dynamite, there were imams, there's some people he didn't like, and look, this is the punishment. This is what he means by giving him one of the savages was a little smart and said to Moses, where's the water from, mate? What? And he's like, nah, none of this questioning stuff. Blew them up with dynamite.
The role of technology is interesting in a lot of these Nation of Islam stories, because I've noticed there are some anachronisms, to be polite, where, for example, when white people are driven out of Mecca, I think, because they were too
they're driven out with rifles.
Yeah, they drove them out with rifles. But then later, Elijah Muhammad quotes I think it's the book of Genesis, after Adam and Eve were driven out of the garden, because he says Adam is the white race, and how Adam and Eve were driven out of the garden and that God prevented them from returning with a flaming sword. And he says, okay, the flaming sword both literally exists, but it's also Muslims with rifles guarding, I don't know where exactly it was, but between Europe and the rest of the world. So they had rifles, they had dynamite, and then they forgot.
Where he's like, they put a guard to keep the Europeans on the other side of the wall with swords and shields, he said.
Yeah,
so swords and shields.
Give them guns.
Like, you drove them out with rifles and then kept them on, like, guarded the border with swords and shields. Like, what the fuck is going on, dude? I feel like we've covered all.
What about this thing about the opposites attract? No, but the opposites attract.
No, yeah,
really
do the
fun.
like and a like thing. Yeah, do that part. Yeah,
because he's got this thing about how white people have been able to rule black people, even though black people are literally gods, and white people are terrible at everything. Well, it's because he says opposites attract. So he says, oh, look, you've got a magnet, right? And like poles of magnets repel each other, but the opposite poles attract each other. Therefore, because white people have nothing in common with black people, they just have none of their virtues, black people want to follow white people. That's why white people can rule black people for the 6,000 years that it was predicted they would before the institution of the racially pure eternal kingdom of the spirit or whatever the fuck is meant to happen. So that's basically why. It's white people can rule despite being so much weaker because Moses gave them technology or something, and because opposites attract. And this doesn't work reciprocally. That is, couldn't the black race also be able to lead the white race because of the opposites attracting? Because the black race loves the white race, but the white race by nature can't love anything. He's also got this bit saying that whites kill an average of 100 million black people every 1,000 years since white people arrived on Earth. So they've killed 600 million black people.
There you go.
And he just says it and then leaves.
Six.
Yeah, 6 comes up again. What about this quote? God created 2 kinds of everything. So it is with man. He didn't intend for them to mix, and has set a day of reckoning for those who willfully and knowingly break his natural law, in which he has created man. You hear that? You'll be punished for race mixing.
God damn it. God damn it. There's this part where he's responding to a preacher named Mr. Herbert Armstrong of Pasadena, California, and Theodore Fitch of Council Bluff, Iowa. They wrote a little book. They're white, and the book is titled "Our Lord's Plan for the White Race," subtitled "Who Are We?" or "Who We Are," where we came from, why he chose us, what our work is, why our descendants must remain white. So there's the white religious racist. And then he responds to them. So basically the rest of this chapter is just like, oh, white people are liars and all that sort of stuff. But then later down, he responds directly and he answers the guy's questions. And I really like this paragraph. He says, the truth, all capitals, that the world has been waiting to know is just the answers to Mr. Fitch's questions in the title of his book, Our Lord's Plan for the White Race. He says, the Lord's plan for the white race is the God of righteousness never had a plan for you, motherfuckers. So it's just like, out of here. Who we are. You are the enemies of God and the righteous. Where are we from? From the black man. Why he chose us. The God of righteousness did not choose you. If he had, he would not destroy you. What our work is. Evil. Why our descendants must remain white. Certainly, you should remain white.
Again, the Varg Fard Muhammad crossover.
There's an awful lot that Varg Vikernes and Fard Muhammad / Elijah Muhammad would like weirdly agree on.
Yeah, which is always a red flag, I think, when there's too much overlap between your beliefs and those of Varg.
Yeah, I feel like if you find yourself agreeing too much with any racial supremacist, you should probably rethink some of your starting premises. There's something off here in my calculations. Did you know, because Yakub knew that white people only had 6,000 years to rule before they'd be overthrown, he made them in a hurry. And that, they were married very young when they were being bred, were 15 or 16 years of age, which is why white people have fiery and impatient temperaments. I just thought that was an interesting detail. I've always wondered. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there you have it.
Explains why white people are impatient. They're impatient because 6,000 years ago, Yakub...
He says the white race are bad in part because they don't get down on their knees and pray for anything, and instead they go and make it. And I thought, when he said that, isn't that actually a good characteristic, that if you need something, you go out and make it happen? I mean, I am white, so maybe that's just, I'm racially inclined to think that way. But isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, but you should just be able to just spontaneously make things exist.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's just of necessity.
I don't know.
Because white people aren't
it's just
godlike. This book is so repetitive. Like, there are so many...
It's quite short. It's only 40... if you take out the front and back matter, it's only 40 pages.
It's very short, extremely repetitive. I think we've covered basically everything. Like, there are a
don't have
ton of
any
really
other
funny
major.
quotes I could read out, but they would just be going over things that we've already mentioned.
Yeah, if you got any other funny quotes, that would be, I guess, good. Just white people are murderers, white people are liars, white people came from Cain, white people came from Adam. Adam was the original sinner.
Yeah. I
He
think
just really doesn't
something
like
of
white
a
people.
narrative arc. The book gets a lot more. I mean, it starts out very racist, but it ends extremely racist. So it,
It gets more. It goes from like an 8 to a 10 over the course of the book.
yeah. Yes. So you're still working on one end of the spectrum, but it gets more racist. There's a bit of dynamism in there.
So I've got some questions then to ask you. Yeah, I feel like we've covered all the major topics of the book. What was it like as a white person being on the receiving end of this sort of racism?
I can't say it really worried me because it's just so bizarre. Like when you have a guy
Just
saying
doesn't
that
even-
you are the product of a succession of stages of selective breeding to make worse humans. You ran around in Europe naked for 2,000 years without fire and only with dogs as your
then made
friends, which is
monkeys.
why you're racially inclined to like dogs. And then Moses gave you some nebulously defined special powers for you to rule over black people for 6,000 years and then you will be destroyed. Like, when I read that, I'm not offended because it's just so fucking stupid. You would need to be so thin-skinned to take offense at this because it's so fucking dumb.
You're not offended, Jack. You're not offended.
It's just so stupid.
Oh my god. I feel like the only people who might walk away from a book like this being offended would be Muslim people.
I
feel like
yes.
that,
I
like,
think
if a Muslim read this,
the
they'd be
group
like-
who'd get most upset would probably be devout Muslims
But I
who are
don't
having
think
the
white
name
people
of their faith abused for this shit.
Just completely trashed by a charlatan, by a fucking charlatan who clearly
A fucking
didn't fucking
door-to-door
like know anything about
salesman.
it, who clearly was just like a con man and didn't know the first fucking thing about Islam or Christianity by the looks of it. He just made shit up.
Yeah, he just looked at the
Yeah.
spark notes
So
of
maybe-
the Quran, was like, oh yeah, I kind of get this.
Yeah, right. Is anybody in Detroit gonna fact check me? No, they're fucking not. Okay, I can go with this. Yeah. And then that motherfucker was selling people Muslim names. Can you just to think that maybe people like Muhammad Ali, like, I hope this doesn't apply to Muhammad Ali, but if kind of transitively Muhammad Ali is part of like if the historical origins of that trend starting in the US is a fucking con man who started a cult, that puts a really weird spin on one of the greatest athletes of all time. I'm going to check that now.
yeah. If he was sincerely into this, then it kind of sours my view of him. I mean, I guess he did get repeatedly
Muhammad
punched in
Ali.
the head, which probably didn't help his critical thinking skills.
Yeah, he was punched in the head quite a lot, but
That was kind of his job.
Yeah.
Repeated blunt force trauma to the head.
Repeatedly punch other people in the head.
Let me find the people who are most capable of inflicting blunt force trauma to my head, and then fight them.
The giant people.
Let me find people.
Oh,
who
he
can
was in
punch
he was
harder
in the
than
Nation of
anyone
Islam.
else in the world, and let them punch me.
Oh, so what happened? Okay, so he was in the he joined Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. So and then he left the Nation of Islam but sort of adhered to Sunni Islam. So even Muhammad Ali, a man who made a living getting punched in the fucking head, was like, this shit is crazy. I'm gonna go over to Sunni Islam.
Yeah. Well, it turned out better than Malcolm X, because I think Malcolm X was also part of the Nation of Islam, left, and then a member of the Nation of Islam killed him for leaving.
Oh, was he shot by... Oh, right.
And the funnier thing is, when you look at Nation of Islam stuff today, they list Malcolm X as one of their famous converts. It's like, no, didn't you guys kill him?
Man, far out. Man, this organisation is just bad news, isn't it?
It's just a racial supremacist organisation. Granted, their racial supremacy is quite funny, but it's still, like, at its core, it's just a racial supremacist organisation.
Do you have any final thoughts about?
Not really. Like, there's not much to this book, and there's not much to these beliefs. They're just kind of frivolous. In terms of recommending the book, I reckon it's worth flicking through. I wouldn't pay money for it, but...
I reckon... Oh, look, okay. I used to... Like, my attitude towards the recommendation section at the end of our episodes was like, I was thinking, would I recommend this to a normal person?
Oh, no, but normal people don't listen to us.
But now I'm going to update the heuristic I'm using. Would I recommend it to the type of people who are in our Discord? Yes, I would.
Yeah,
I genuinely think the people in our Discord, it's only 40 pages long. Shout out to all the people in our Discord. It's fucking, we're getting more people joining in and getting into it. I think they would, I actually think you guys would enjoy it.
Yeah, I think
it's really weird.
Because it's sort of like a pyramid in that you have to be a bit of a weirdo to listen to us in the first place. You have to be even stranger to join the Discord and lurk. You have to be even stranger to join the Discord and participate. And particularly to that top tier, I expect all of them would find this to be a lot of fun.
Those daily, the people who are in their daily, fucking getting around.
The people who are brain damaged enough to consistently communicate with us will really enjoy this.
I would say that this week's book has demystified the Nation of Islam for me, because like if you heard of Malcolm X or whatever, you would have heard the Nation of Islam. You're like, what's that? Oh, okay, it's Islam. It's not Islam. It's not fucking Islam.
This is...
It's not like these people are not Muslims.
They've basically just taken a bunch of names from Islam, like Allah and Muhammad, and that's about the end of the similarities.
And then they'll selectively quote parts of the Quran or the Hadith or the Bible that agree with the point that they're trying to make in their
not even agree
ideology.
Like the biblical and Quranic quotes in this were so vague as to just be totally meaningless.
You can just use it for whatever you want.
Yeah. Like you could use it to describe anything.
Yeah, so that was cooked. It was actually like a surprisingly interesting thing to read. I would recommend someone just flick through this book. I don't really want to read and
laugh at some of the funny bits, and that's about it.
Would I read I don't think we should. Maybe. I mean, if one of them is more like coherent, maybe. Like if one of them, because instead of being a collection of talks or whatever, but it's like, no, this is actually like the teachings of Bard Muhammad or something. Maybe I would read it, but
I wouldn't be opposed to another episode on Nation of Islam or Nation of Islam adjacent, but I agree with you. It would need to be a bit more than Elijah Muhammad just writing down the ramblings of Fard Muhammad. Which is basically what this book is. It's
so funny.
It's just this dude rambling for 40 pages.
Did we learn anything, Jack? Did we learn anything?
I agree with what you said. It has demystified the Nation of Islam for me. Where now I just do not take it seriously at all as an organisation. Whereas previously, because I didn't know so much about it, because this is probably why they put the word Islam in the title. I thought it would have some deep theology because it is related to Islam, but it just doesn't. It's just absolute chicken shit.
I think you were good then.
I think that's it.
Episode. Yeah, that was good. That was fun.
Next episode is going to be on Atlas Shrugged.
Oh shit.
That'll be a fun episode because I think we actually have different opinions on the book.
Yeah, I I like different parts of it. I think it is extremely long. I think if she were writing these days, like it would probably be like half the length. But I don't know.
I would say I'm more irritated with her editor than with her, because it's her editor's job to say, listen, mate, it does not need to be this long. He just went fucking AWOL for the entire editing process. Anyway,
I was actually thinking about. Anyways, we'll save that.
We'll discuss that next week.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for listening.